Have you ever thought about how a single tiny stretch of water can hold the entire global economy in its hands? Well, there's a place just like that. It's called the Strait of Hormuz, and it is, without any exaggeration, the world's most important choke point.
To really get why, let's just start with a number. 21 million. So what's that? That is the number of barrels of oil that pass through this one narrow strait every single day. The sheer volume is just staggering.
And, 21 million barrels isn't just some abstract, massive number. Let's put that in perspective. It's about a quarter of all the oil that's transported by sea in the entire world. So think about that for a second. For every 4 oil tankers out on the ocean, one of them is funneling through this one tiny spot.
This makes the Strait of Hormuz the absolute textbook definition of what's called a maritime choke point. It's a narrow, strategic channel that is just fundamentally critical to world trade. And as you can imagine, any disruption here, even a small one, sends massive ripples across the globe.
So let's explore that idea a bit more. We're calling this section the world's energy jugular because, well, that's pretty much what it is. It's the main artery pumping the lifeblood of the world's energy supply.
So where is all this energy actually headed? An incredible 85% of it is destined for Asia. We're talking about powering the massive economies of countries like China, India, Japan, and South Korea. Their economic stability is directly, and I mean directly, tied to the smooth transit of ships through this strait.
But here's a fact that might actually surprise you. It's not just about oil and gas. The strait is also a major corridor for fertilizers. Yeah, that's right. In fact, 30%, nearly a third of the entire world's trade in these commodities, passes right through Hormuz. So, in a very real way, the food on your table is also linked to what happens in this waterway.
Okay, so let's switch gears and look at the actual geography, because this is where things get really fascinating. We're going to zoom in on the physical constraints of this passage, and specifically, something known as the 2-mile rule.
To really understand the risk involved here, you have to get a sense of the scale. We hear the word strait, but what does that really mean? Just how tight a squeeze are we talking about when the stakes are this incredibly high?
So here it is. You can see it connecting the Persian Gulf on the left with the Gulf of Oman on the right. To the north, you've got Iran, and to the south, you see that jagged piece of land? That's the Musandam Peninsula, which belongs to Oman, with the UAE right there as well. All of that global traffic has to squeeze through this tiny gap.
Now, this is where it gets really incredible. At its narrowest point, the strait is about 21 miles wide. But, and this is the key part, the actual shipping lanes that those gigantic tankers have to use are only 2 miles wide in each direction. They're separated by a 2-mile buffer zone to prevent collisions, but that's it. That is an astonishingly small margin for error for the world's energy supply.
And this strategic value is nothing new. The fight for control over this passage goes back centuries. You can almost think of it as a maritime version of the old Silk Road. It's always been that important.
If you go back to the medieval era, it was already a great mart of trade. But as global powers grew, control started to shift. First, it was the Portuguese, who took over in the 16th century. Then came the British, who held dominance all the way until 1971. Today, that sovereignty is shared between Iran and Oman, and they jointly manage this critical waterway.
So let's fast forward to today, because that long history of strategic competition is very, very much alive. It just takes the form of modern geopolitical tensions. And honestly, the stakes have never been higher.
So, who exactly depends on this strait? Well, essentially all the major energy producers in the Persian Gulf. For nations like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Iraq, this is their primary, and in some cases their only, route to get their main exports out to the global market.
And because of that intense dependency, any regional instability, any little flare-up, immediately raises global fears of a possible closure of this vital energy corridor. That single fear, right there, is the reason this strait is constantly in the news.
So, when you boil it all down, why does Hormuz matter so much? It's a point of incredible concentration. You've got an immense amount of the world's economic power flowing through a tiny, fragile, and very contested link in the global supply chain.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty critical question for the future, doesn't it? As the world's appetite for energy continues to grow and the politics of the region remain as complicated as ever, you really have to wonder, just how secure is this lifeline that all of us, in one way or another, truly depend on?